Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I'm joined by Tara for episode 1 of season 1 of Watchmen from HBO. The title of this episode is It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice. So we will start spoiler free because this is in episode 1, and we will warn you somewhere in the middle before we go into spoilers, don't worry about that. So this is obviously based on the famous comic book by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, although notably, if you're paying attention to the credits, only Dave Gibbons got credited for it.
Yep, not the first time that's happened.
Yeah, it said co-created by Dave Gibbons. I'm like, who's the other one then? If it's co-created, there has to be at least one other person. So Alan Moore, notoriously angry at people for using his stuff. So everyone, and this is obviously from Damien Lindelof. There you go, I got it out eventually. He, of course, worked on Lost, and he worked more notably perhaps here on The Leftovers, which was another HBO show. It ran for 3 seasons, which I did watch. I did enjoy. Me and Connor reviewed all 3 seasons of that. It was a very, very good, well-written show once it got going. So we knew going into this that it was a sequel of some sort, that it was set after the events of Watchmen. You know, it's set 2019, so it's just, you know, it's like 30-something years after. Basically, Watchmen happened around us being born / being toddlers, and we are the age of the time gap that has happened.
Yes.
I said we. So Tara, now I've read Watchmen, of course. I'll throw that out there. Obviously, I run a DC Comics podcast, so I'd be weird if I hadn't read Watchmen. Tara, I know you have, but just tell the audience how much you've read Watchmen and so on.
Yeah, I read Watchmen many years ago, and I read it a couple times because I really liked it and was really impressed by it. And in anticipation for the film that came out back in 2009,
yep,
I think I read it a second time.
10 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
Time flies.
Yeah, and so I've read them a couple times, and I just sort of reread it right before the show started.
Explain what sort of means for the audience, Tara.
So I have a Blu-ray of the motion comic, which is about 5.5 hours.
Is that how long it is?
So instead of reading it, I just watched that.
I didn't realize it was that long. Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Every episode's like 25 minutes, and there's 12 of them.
Oh, so yeah, it's literally just every issue, one by one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. No, I'm a big fan of the book as well. It's a very well written book. You know, sometimes it gets put in this pedestal for being the be all and end all of like comic books ever, but it kind of earned that space, even if it's not necessarily entirely true.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so like in a bottle, you know, it's just on its own. I mean, I know there's like a Doomsday Clock series or something that happened recently. I don't know anything about that. Apparently, there are Watchmen characters in it, but it's just its own little nice package that you can read on its own.
Yeah,
and it's not intimidating like Detective Comics 894 or something.
I need to introduce you to more non-superhero comics because a lot of them are like that. But yeah, no, Watchmen's very good, and it's very satirical of comic books. And what was frustrating about Watchmen sometimes is that people take the wrong messages from it. And I think one of the interesting things about this first episode of Watchmen is the Rorschach-inspired gang, the Cavalry 7, or the 7th Cavalry, I think it was referred to, which are basically white supremacists who are all wearing Rorschach masks. And what I think is wonderful about that is that Rorschach's a character who everyone loves, but some people don't love him for the right reasons. It's kind of the same thing with Taxi Driver and stuff like that, where some people love it without really realizing the satire about it or what makes the character intricate. In the case with Rorschach, it's like, yes, he is a badass who's beating people up, but he is a nut job, and his sense of right and wrong is to a fault, where he is beating people up for things that they should never be, you know, at least not to that extreme degree. He's a psychopath, and the idea that, you know,
yeah, but the world kind of made him one.
Don't give him get out clauses. But the whole idea that an extremist group is using his image and manipulating it for their own gain, it reminds me of the sort of people who might misinterpret what Rorschach was really about, or they just thought Rorschach was the good guy and he shouldn't have died.
They're claiming it, they're claiming it for themselves. Yeah.
He should have won because Rorschach was the coolest. And it's like, well, no, Rorschach was a cool character, but he was cool for a lot of really interesting reasons that weren't just he's a badass. and
Hmm.
he was fighting for the right things. No, it was more difficult than that. It was harder to break down than that. So
Yeah, it seems like in this case they're using Rorschach as anti-government propaganda symbol,
yeah,
because
kind of, yeah.
he's more of like the conspiracy theorist leader, it seems, for this.
Yeah. Um, yeah, obviously Rorschach himself is nowhere to be found because, again, obviously we're not doing spoilers for the episode yet, but I mean, we are probably going to have to
Spoilers for
mention,
Watchmen.
yeah, spoilers for the original story if you've not read it or whatever, or at least seen the movie. Um, so Rorschach's dead. Rorschach was poofed. He was vaporized by Dr. Manhattan,
Hmm.
and he's not existing. So this is just people. And I like the idea that if Rorschach was around, he would probably find these people and break their face for using his image. He would hate it.
Or one finger at a time.
Yes, he would destroy them brutally. Um, so the general premise of the first episode is that a police officer, and there's a lot of interesting things to talk about how their police function, which we'll get to in a little bit. But a police officer
Hmm.
is murdered by a member of the 7th Cavalry, the Rorschach sort of group, and it becomes about sort of trying to track down the culprits behind this. And that it basically it leads it's there to introduce us to a lot of different characters. Angela, Regina King's character, who's kind of our main character, or closest to it at the very least, as well as the chief of police, Judd, and a few others kind of sprinkled throughout, and just it sets up some of the basics of what the world is right now. Because obviously, even if you've read Watchmen, it's like, well, what is the world 35 years later? Well, this is kind of just establishing that not everything yet, but a fair chunk of it to get our feet wet and kind of get the ball rolling. And yeah, so I mean, that's what it does. And
Well, what do you think about that premise, though, of it being 30 years in the future, knowing how the Watchmen ends?
I think it had to be set after. I think because in the comics they actually did like a series called Before Watchmen. They did a series of prequel books that came out, and everyone was like, and this was the first time anyone had done anything with Watchmen since the original book. So
So it was blasphemy.
yeah, it was like, well, no, you can't add to Watchmen. Watchmen's a complete perfect story, like whatever. So, but they did the whole revelation like a few years ago that Watchmen was going to lead to Doomsday Clock, and it was this thing that was integrating with DC characters. That the Manhattan had an effect on like Batman and Superman's world. Everyone was kind of freaking out, but it wasn't as bad as it would have been if Before Watchmen hadn't already happened, because that was the first time that someone did something, and it was like a series of minis that, but it was all before, so it was like early days of Comedian, early days of Ozymandias, early days of the Minutemen, and so on and so on. And I never read those because I was like, I don't really need prequel stuff. Prequels in general as an idea is something you have to really convince me to get on board with that. A sequel
Really?
set this far later, where it can be whatever they want it to be, because the problem with the prequel is that it has to kind of still lead into what we know as the story. This can do whatever it wants. This can just take it in a direction. It can do interesting things. It can tie it into the modern day stuff. Because the big thing about Watchmen, of course, was how it tied into the politics of the time, and how Nixon was a big part of it, and the idea of the minutes to midnight kind of, and superheroes representing not only actual superhero characters and being a satire of those, but also nuclear weapons, because it was the tail end of the Cold War, and so on and so on. And it's definitely clear in this show right from the get-go that we are tackling political subjects. We are
Big time.
we are tackling gun control. We are tackling race and all the intricacies of that. Police shootings. Although a lot of it's kind of flipped on its head, and it's kind of doing different things with it, because again, we're in an alternate world. We're not in our world. We're in Watchmen's universe.
Right. We're in the Watchmen's future.
Yeah. So
Mount Rushmore has Nixon on it.
yeah, Mount Rushmore has Nixon on it. There was a few things in the background like that that really made me laugh. Although my favorite,
I was like, when I heard that that HBO had acquired the rights to make the Watchmen series, I thought they were just going to do the Watchmen again.
Just adapt it.
Why would you? It's already a perfect story. Like, why not make it a 12-part miniseries? But I was really surprised that we were going into the future when we saw that first trailer. But I also was very intrigued by that idea, because the way that Watchmen comic ends is that there's a huge sacrifice made in order to bring around world peace. So what would that civilization look like? But something gets in the way of that, which is Rorschach's journal.
Yep.
So yeah, really, Yeah, so I'm really really excited about the series in general. And I think the first episode's off to a pretty good start. And not where I expected it to go at all.
Yeah, I think it's starting off fairly slow. It's not like, I mean, and not that it was a slow paced episode. Just I just mean that it's not like getting to everything right away. It's just introducing like, because it mainly focuses on just Angela, her surrounding characters, and
Hmm.
just the main conflict right now. There's one scene of Jeremy Irons. That's what I was trying to think of his name.
Oh, the
Jeremy
Mandius.
Irons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one scene of him sort of introducing his side of things, but for the most part, it's pretty focused and it introduces all these little things, and we get a sense of the world. My favorite. My favorite line of dialogue in this, which I don't think, well, maybe, yeah, I'll save it for spoilers. But it caught me off guard, and I was not expecting it. I also like the first episode. I think it is great that it's doing its own thing, and it's being, Lindelof's trying to make his version of Watchmen that's relevant in 2019. And what I think is neat is that it's kind of cool that it's a sequel to a comic book that came out 30 plus years ago, and it presumably has to work for everyone who's not read that book because,
Right.
like not everyone has. Like, let's be honest, comic book readers are a lot smaller in terms of numbers than people who watch HBO. That's just the truth.
Sure.
So,
And well, I'm sure most people who are watching the show have watched the movie at least.
unfortunately, but yes.
Yeah, I agree. The movie itself is not, it should be great because it's so faithful to the comic book, like even
Actually,
but to the panels. But there's something that when it translates to the screen that is a bit
I
soulless. I don't know exactly.
no, I agree. Soulless is a good word, and I'll tell you, we just recently on something. It may have been the top 50 thing we did recently. I think it was because I think that's when Psycho came up. But I was talking to you about Psycho and how the remake tried to recreate it for shot, and it just felt
Hmm.
like soulless because like that's not how filmmaking works. Is that it evolves and you change things in the edit to make things work, or you shuffle things around. It's an art form, right? Same difference here. Just taking the comic and doing it panel for panel does not make a good film because
Hmm.
you get the visuals to a point, but it doesn't actually have the soul or understand what made it work in the first place. When I watched that movie, Watchmen, it's been a while, admittedly, but when I watched that movie, it felt like Zack Snyder, who I have a lot of problems with when it comes to him adapting stuff from comic books.
He's hit or miss for me. I'm not as anti Zack Snyder as you are.
Oh, oh, oh,
I
oh.
know.
It's not even like the non-adaptation stuff's good either. Sucker Punch is like one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
Never seen it.
Oh, it's terrible. But you get the feeling that someone who thinks the comic's cool but doesn't really understand why it's loved, doesn't understand why it's as lauded as it is. And
Right.
I feel like you sense that when you're watching the movie. And I think what this show's doing that's interesting is that I'm feeling little bits of Watchmen here or there. I'm feeling things that feel kind of Watchmen-y. Like they didn't
Hmm.
go nuts with costumes, but just a guy wearing like a silver kind of shiny mask. It feels very Watchmen-y on its own in a
It
kind of
does, yeah.
more low-key way. These satire elements, all those things coming in, but at the same time, there is all these little references to stuff that happened in the past, like that
Hmm.
kind of creep up.
Squid talk.
Squid talk or the stuff on the news, but at the same time, it's also filling in this other alternate history that's happened in the last 30 years. I got really confused at one point when someone said like the Redford aid or something like that, and I was like,
Yeah.
the what now? And I'm like, oh, Robert Redford was president at one point. Okay, that's interesting. All right, we've shaken things up. And the racists really hate him because he was super liberal and progressive. So, like, it's building all this stuff up, and like right from the get go, the opening scene because the opening scene set in the past, it's like a flashback, which I assume is an origin story for a certain character that kind of peeks in later. What I
Hmm.
think is interesting about that is I was wondering if that would actually become the show's because how the comic book has the Black Freighter like sort of comic book that pops in, and it's its own little mini story kind of sprinkled throughout. I was wondering if those flashbacks might continue like every episode, and that'd be kind of the show's version of that, where you get the story of this kid. I won't say any more for now for spoiler's sake, but I don't know. I may be completely wrong, but
Maybe.
I considered that
It
maybe
is a
the
real
case.
event. It's not like an alternate history event.
Oh yeah, the actual like attack, yeah.
Hmm.
But I mean like the journey of this kid, like in
Sure. Yeah.
what he goes on
With
to
the
do.
baby.
Yeah, with the baby. So, um, That's interesting. Admittedly, I didn't necessarily recognize the attack. It's not a part of history I've ever learned about, but it doesn't.
I don't. I mean, I'll be straight up. I had to look it up as well. I don't know if I learned about it in school. School was kind of a long time ago, but also I went to school in Canada.
Yeah, we didn't study a lot of American history in school. Certainly not that sort of stuff. We did study kind of like what racism was like in America in like the 50s and 60s. That wasn't in history though. That was actually in like moral studies. That was like just learning about the world, and which relevant because that was also the class we got, like religious education. And I thought the race stuff and like, learning about that was far more relevant and useful and impactful to our young minds than the religion stuff
Well, I
was.
mean, I did look up the event, and one of the things it said on there is that this is not something that was really talked about, even in schools or in Missouri itself. They don't really talk about it, or Oklahoma, excuse me.
Oklahoma,
It's
yeah.
Oklahoma, right? Tulsa.
Yes, yeah, I think it said Tulsa. Yeah. So we'll get into the details of that in a bit. But no, overall, I'm into it so far. I think it. Well, and another thing I'll say is really good. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails does the music for this, and the music is pretty bitchin'. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, well,
Oklahoma
you know what you're
songs,
getting when you get Trent Reznor. So.
but there's a lot of like pulsing kind of, industrial stuff. There's like some firefights that rather than some build up to some firefights, they have this like. And I'm like,
I liked all the Oklahoma music. I'm a big fan of Rodgers and Hammerstein, so it was nice.
I don't know any of
I
it.
wasn't expecting to be able to sing along to a Watchmen episode.
Maybe next week they'll give me something I can sing along to.
Maybe they'll play The Hand That Feeds or something. Yeah.
I can sing to that, but like maybe they'll have like a grunge episode or something. There'll be Nirvana playing or something. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, no, but the episode, I thought the episode was pretty solid. It is very much doing its own thing. I think if you're someone who does hate the idea of anyone doing anything related to Watchmen, and that's including you, Alan Moore, who I know somewhere in the Moors, there's a shirtless Alan Moore howling into the night with that giant beard, just
He probably looks like Cousin It right now. Hair down to the ground.
Yeah.
Hiding in a sewer.
In fact, I didn't read it, but I saw a headline.
Writing papers all over the walls.
Yeah, I didn't actually read the article, but I saw a headline out today. Apparently, Lindelof said in an interview he believes Alan Moore's put a hex on him. And I'm like, that sounds pretty believable, to be honest.
Yeah, I believe it.
So yeah, let's get to spoilers then. So full spoilers for episode 1 of Watchmen. In fact, before we go on, Tara, why don't you tell everyone at home about what they can do to support us?
Sure, yeah. If you like what we do, or if you're new to the channel and want to see more bonuses that we offer, it's patreon.com/SmileFuzzTV. You can donate as low as $1 and you'll get bonus episodes of other shows we do, including the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. It's our science fiction movie review show, so check it out.
There you go. So we opened with this event in the past. Do you happen to know what year it was?
1921.
There you go. That sounds right, actually, because the character later on says he's 105.
5.
I'd be older than that then, right? No. That means he's 5 in this flashback, right?
Yeah, he wasn't born in 21.
You're right. Yeah, I'm misnumbering things. So we see him. They're in a silent movie theater, and his mother is the pianist. Because this was back when they had a pianist playing along with the movie, because there was no audio tracks or sound playback yet with movies. And there's this attack. The KKK come in. I'm assuming that's exactly who it is. I mean, if it's a specific regiment, and obviously I don't know about it, but they're coming in. And I want to point out here, there was a line that I really liked that came up a little bit later. After the the policeman was murdered, and Judd, the police chief, was told about it, and he comes out of the Oklahoma production, and he goes to the wife of the cop, and there's a line there that I really liked that felt like it was kind of intentionally harkening back to this opening attack, where he's trying to like comfort the wife and he's saying, you know, your husband will be better, you know, I care about him. And she's obviously just very upset and mad right now. And he says, yeah, I know what you're thinking, F you and the horse you rode in. I don't know, there was a really interesting, the way he phrased that, to make it, you know, like, I don't know, there's a nice little connective tissue there. About that. It was kind of like he was offering a branch. It's like, yeah, I know I'm the white guy in charge, and I know you might not necessarily believe anything I'm saying right now, but I don't know. There was a nice thing there. Anyway, so so his parents, this kid's parents, like have to like sort of like, you know, hide him and like sort of run around and try and get to this cart so they can get this carriage rather, so they can sneak him out of the town and get him to some form of safety. And it's a very dangerous thing. There's literally bullet holes coming in the carriage as he's in it, because he's like hiding in like a sort of crate or a box or something in the back of this, and there's like a bullet hole at one point, and he actually looks through the bullet hole and you just see people being dragged and burned, and it's absolutely
pretty awful.
Yeah, it's just despicable stuff in front of him, and he's so young to see this. And honestly, and I was thinking as I was watching this, I was like, is this a character that's in Watchmen? Like, is this the origin of someone who I already know from the book? And I don't think it is, but it was something that I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have any, like the Minutemen, I'm pretty sure we're all white unless the Hooded Justice was black, and we don't know, I guess, because he's never been unmasked.
Yeah, no, it may not be that he's anyone. It was just, that's where my mind was going. I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, is this someone that I know from the book? Is this someone that could show up?
Right.
But of course, his parents eventually get killed. You know, because the carriage gets turned over, and when they get attacked at some point in the road, and he gets out and he finds a baby, and there was a note that his father put in his pocket that just said, "Take care of this boy," and he puts it back in his pocket. And he finds this baby, and he kind of walks off into the night, as it were, and that's, you know, that's our opening scene. It's this despicable kind of very act, and obviously, like, okay, we're getting political very quickly here. We're clearly not shying away from these harsh themes, and I'm like, this is going to be very important, of course, going forward. Although it's not evidently clear for most of the episode how it even lines up with anything. There's obviously one character. There's an old man who's 105 in a wheelchair, who, our fair assumption at this point is that he's this kid in 29, you know,
because he still has the note.
Yes, because he still has the note, and he may have superpowers, because he at least claims that he can lift 200 pounds, which, given that he's a frail old man who's 105 years old in a wheelchair, is a bold claim.
Yeah,
very bold.
And I mean, apparently this attack was might have been considered like the worst race attack in history. Like something like 100 to 300 Black people were murdered, and I think it was interesting to see, like, to open up with this for the Watchmen series. Certainly not something I thought we were going to be tackling. I thought most of the show was going to be about police brutality and why they hide behind masks.
And there's definitely elements of that in here in a way, but it's not the sole focus by any means. I think I'm not surprised it's focusing a lot on race. I think mainly because as soon as because when they hired Regina to play Angela, and because they specifically said that she was the lead, right? It wasn't like she's part of an ensemble. She is the lead, and sure, all the characters are going to be important, but she is definitely, so far as at least as well in terms of actually watching the show, feels like the lead character. And as soon as they did that, I kind of assumed that race was going to play into things thematically. It just, not that it needs to, because you've got a black main character, but it just, given that Watchmen does tackle political issues, it felt very, I don't know.
Yeah, and America has a very unfortunate and problematic history with race, so
yeah, of
course we're going to tackle it. Like, it's clear now, and I'm really excited about where the show is going because of it. And I think it's cool that the kid, when the silent movie he was watching was about a Black sheriff who is looked up upon by all the white community and is looked at as a hero, and our hero is a cop, a Black cop. So
yeah, it's just this kind of fantasy thing for him. Like, you know, at the time, this was probably not something that was ever seen, or at least if it was very rare in America. And, you know, it goes from him watching this dream of, you know, being respected as like a hero to everyone, to be having to hide and dodging bullets because racists are killing everyone. And then we come to such a this next scene, like the opening scene in present day, is so well done. Probably the best directed scene of the whole episode, I thought. We have this guy in a truck, this white guy. I mean, I kind of need to point out who everyone's race is now as we're going, because for a lot of it is quite relevant. So we have this white guy in a truck who is, you know, he looks like he's a bit of a hillbilly, right? He's got a pickup truck.
He's listening to some pretty hardcore rap, though. It's pretty cool.
That's true. That's true. Yes, he was listening to some rap on the radio, and he's, you know, he's drinking out of it. It looks like a fast food cup, but I mean, when the cop pulls him over, he's like, "What are you drinking?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it could be something else in there. Like he may have just filled it with anything." But you know, so a policeman pulls him over, and he comes up, and we knew from like the photos before the show came out that the policemen all wore these yellow masks. But I think what's interesting here is that the policeman was black, and we have this policeman who's pulled him over, and even though this guy, there is something a little fishy about him to us as the audience. He feels a little bit like something's up. At the same time, it's a very intense. The way it's shot is very intense and very much on his side. Where you never see you don't even see the policeman's mask because the light is shining right in the camera to us. We
it
can't
looks like
see
a present
anything.
day scene.
Yeah, and it feels
in our world,
and it feels very intrusive. It feels very kind of like he's asking all these questions. Some of which are not kind of normal, but some of them aren't. Like some of them are very specific to the Watchmen universe.
Yeah.
You know, eventually asked for his license and registration and whatnot, but some of the questions he's asking felt a little bit more specific, and it felt like a little bit more authoritarian. I'll say it right.
Authoritative?
Yeah, more or less. Thank you. That'll go. But it did feel kind of intimidating, like because this guy, because he feels like the type of guy who would mouth off to a cop, right? He feels like the type of guy who would drunkenly mouth off, but he's not. He's being very polite. He's keeping his hands on the wheel. He's playing it very by the book, and it made me think that the police are more feared. And maybe that's because I'd seen all the masks on the promo stills. It look kind of scary. Like they're all wearing masks. That's kind of creepy.
Sure.
Right.
Like keep cops anonymous.
Right.
It, to me, made me think that they can get away with stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They have more power now. And then another thing, obviously, because we're dealing with a world that's had superheroes, is the obvious like parallel with superheroes having secret identities.
Like now, cops are the superheroes.
Yeah, they have secret identities. Yeah. But then it kind of flips because, you know, he sees like in his glove box at one point, you know, what looks like a Rorschach mask, and he takes his license and that back to his vehicle and he calls it in. And he's like, "Hey, I think I saw a Rorschach mask in this guy's truck. Permission to you know, take my weapon." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And we find out that all the cops like guns, at least on regular patrol, are in these locked like mechanisms that only open when it's approved by the higher ups. So he has to go all the way back to his car, request a weapon, convince his superior that he needs it, and then it doesn't work the first time he presses it, and it takes like extra amount of time. And I was like sitting here thinking like, this is so complex with what it's actually saying to me here, because
it's really well done.
Because
I love the fact that when he like shows up at the window too, he has to tell the guy he pulled over that they're being recorded, that he has a body cam on, and like it seems like almost the not too distant future for us with technology. But
the weird thing is here is that I'm looking at this scene and like what it's telling me, and it almost feels like it's like how much this is putting the cop in danger by him having to go through all this hassle to get his weapon. Is this being oddly pro weapons and like pro like is this like trying to stick up for police here? Because undoubtedly we have there's a problem right now, and always has been. You know, maybe it's just more documented now, but with police brutality and police just taking their guns out and shooting people who should not be shot. Right, that is an ongoing thing, and particularly when we're talking about race, right? Because every time I see a headline, policeman kills a teenager or something, before I click on the article, I say, I wonder what race that person was. I click on the article, and every single time, it's exactly what I thought it was. So I'm looking at this scene, I'm like, what is this saying? But it's also flipped the race of the characters, right? Because it's not the person in the truck that's black in this scenario, it's the cop. And it's the cop that's in danger again. And I don't know, like I'm sitting here thinking about like, this scene's doing a lot of complex things.
Oh yeah,
It's
this
flipping
show
everything around.
is really playing with race, and like even our main characters have kids that are not the same race as them, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I guess they could be adopted, but I don't know what they're trying to say exactly yet
Oh,
about it.
I'm sure they are adopted. Like, I mean, I think
Well,
that's,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they are
they
too,
could be
but
adopted. I'm
but
pretty
it's just
sure.
curious. It's a curious choice, and I'm waiting to see that storyline go forward as well. Like,
Well, even
let's
later,
go.
her son, because she's doing like Angela's doing like she's because she's a retired cop to the public, because now cops don't let people know they're cops, right? It's actually against the rules to let anyone other than your spouse or your I assume your kids are okay too if they're old enough, but they're not allowed to know that that's what you do. So she's, in the face of it as a baker. She has a bakery that's not opened yet, and she's doing like a show and tell thing at school. She's committed one of her son's class. They've got 3 kids, if I counted right, and she's in her son's class, and she's doing like hey, this is how you make a cake or whatever. And I know you were sitting cringing because she was using eggs.
Cookies from Vietnam.
There were cookies from Vietnam, which is a state, of course, in Watchmen universe.
Yes.
After the Vietnam War, Vietnam.
Well, once you have Dr. Manhattan in Vietnam War.
Yeah. It became the well.
We can finally call it a victory.
I was going to say 51st state, but I don't actually remember if there's other states in the Watchmen universe. Maybe it's not 51st. Maybe it's 53rd or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, Russia still seems to be its own thing, but they're our allies again.
Yeah, so there's a Russian superhero on the police force. Well, I say
And her
superhero.
bakery is like a Russian flag.
They're just vigilantes. None of them have superpowers. But that was true in Watchmen as well. But Dr. Manhattan was the only one that really
With the exception of
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan.
that
Yes.
actually had powers. But yeah, and he's obviously his name is Red something. He's the Red something. Of course, he is. Red Scare.
Red Scare.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yes. And also my favorite panda. I lost my shit. See because they're having this big
I did
meeting.
not expect an actual panda mask.
And Judd says, all right, and this is this idea that because this 7th Cavalry is on the streets again because they thought they were gone, it's like, okay, we're going to authorize weapons for everyone. And he says, Panda, authorize the weapons. And it just cuts to this guy in a panda mask.
It's like a full like Disney helmet. Also, it's not just a mask.
Oh, but the best part about it is that he's wearing like a normal suit, for his clothes. It's just the headdress. It's a big headdress, but it's just the headdress, and then it's just a suit.
So I wonder if panda is like a position.
Maybe, yeah. Like it's always a
They
panda.
just pass the mask along,
Yeah.
or if it's if this is just his alias that he has chosen because he happened to have a panda mask.
I want to know how many takes that took for Don Johnson not to crack a smile when he said that line.
I know, right?
Because it's such an absurd little moment. So credit for being complex, because the scene ends, of course, where by the time he gets the gun out and he's almost ready to go back out the car, he just gets shot. The guy in the truck has already gotten out, got a machine gun out, and just tore into him, and he's dead. And like, I don't think I'm ready to fully. Not dead. Sorry. Sorry, not dead. Sorry, he goes to hospital. But yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to fully analyze this scene. I feel like I need to see more of the show to really get into the intricacies of what it's doing with its race commentary.
I mean, he was pulled over seemingly for, we don't know exactly why he was pulled over. The line of questioning is very vague. He asks him what he has in the trunk. The guy says lettuce. When after he kills the cop, he pulls out lettuce and throws it at him. It's it is pretty complex, and you're right. I'm curious to see where this goes, but I don't really know how to analyze it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it could be
not ready for our first episode, but
yeah,
for our first episode.
I guess like. I suppose the one way you could look at it is that even when the black person is put in the position of power, seemingly, it doesn't, like, the power still isn't there. Like, it's still kind of flipped in a way where he's hamstrung by these rules in a way that cops weren't before. Now, obviously, all the cops are dealing with these rules. It's not just him, but in this context we're given in this scene, the imagery that we're having here, that's very much kind of what we're presented with. But it's definitely interesting, because I sent you a message at the end of this scene and said, "Holy shit! Like the politics in this are complex. Like I don't even know where to begin with it." So I'm definitely intrigued to see how they develop this further. And anyway, so I was saying that so we cut
Well,
to
it's definitely going to have something to say, and
yeah,
I'm always going to be for that.
and we cut to Angela. I think it's actually after we cut to Judge first at the Oklahoma play, and then he comes to see the cop in the hospital, and he goes to the wife. All that happens before we go to Angela. And one interesting bit I'll say about him going to the wife is that he says, "Hey, did he tell anyone who he was, what he did?" And she's like, "No, that's against the rules." He's like, "Yeah, but some people sometimes talk. Did he tell anyone?" And he's like, "No, he said he went to night school. He didn't reveal it." And I was like, "This is okay. This is interesting that cops have to hide who they are." And again, Jonah also kind of flips. It also flips this idea that like bigots for a long time are hiding who they were, and they felt more empowered recently to be open with it. Like there was like it was not that they weren't literally wearing masks, but there was like a mask before, and it's almost like now the people who are actually trying to protect everyone are having to hide who they are. So again, it's kind of flipping some conventions on its head and doing some different things.
I mean, they say it's illegal to tell people you're a police officer. It's like everybody's a spy. They all have secret identities. Yeah, you're right. I mean, this line of questioning really says a lot about the background.
And then we get to Angela, like I say, she's in the school and she's doing this, and she's telling everyone about her past and getting shot and how she was targeted for being a police officer, and how she's kind of retired, but she really just became a vigilante who works with a mask alongside the police officers. And this kid says something. This is where the Redford aid comes up, because he says, "Oh, did you start your bakery with the Redford money?" And she's like, "Excuse me," and we get that it's offensive, but we don't really understand why. I think
it's supposed to be Reformation.
So we don't even realize that this is her kid yet. This other kid with long hair, who's like, he just gets up and runs across the classroom and starts beating the shit, or at least trying to beat the shit out of this kid. And we cut to them in the car afterwards, and she's like, "Why'd you hit him?" He's like, "Well, he's a racist shit." And she's like, "Oh, he's not racist. I mean, he's off to a good start, but like, so again, the theme is there. It's already there, and the idea that even our kids are kind of like paying attention to it and like getting into conflicts about it right away.
They're obviously picking it up from their parents, so there are things, and stirring up at home.
And then it rains squid.
Yeah, very unusual.
Which definitely says this is a sequel to the comic and not.
Yes.
The movie, because the movie changed that detail with the ending. We didn't get
I'm sure people who have never read the comic who are watching the show are very confused.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, it's not even like we understand why it's raining. I guess it's an after effect.
We don't either, but they sort of bring it. I think maybe it was brought up in the classroom, trans-dimensional shifts or something.
Oh no, it was later on. It was during the interrogation later. One of the questions that was about do you believe transdimensional attacks or a conspiracy by the government? And I went, transdimensional attacks? Oh baby, where we going with that? I'm into it.
Yeah. Looks like someone's not done with his work.
Yeah. And obviously Manhattan, we see him on Mars at one point on the TV, just, a little speck.
People are watching him. Yeah. Or people still have eyes on him.
Yeah, there's probably an entire branch of NASA satellites that are just dedicated to rotating around Mars, or I say rotating, orbiting around Mars, just to keep an eye on Manhattan. So, because he's like, obviously, the world's biggest threat, because he can just do whatever he wants. And
he's a walking nuclear bomb. Yes.
So no, that was really interesting, and she gets this call. What was the code word? It was a Little Bighorn. I wrote that down because I wouldn't really remember it. She gets paged that code, and she's like, "Oh shit, I need to go." And this is where we find out she has a costume, and she goes to the police station and sits in on this big meeting. And we hear a little bit.
Costume.
Yeah, the costume's cool. It's simple but cool. I like this manifesto we get of the Rorschachs, the 7th Cavalry, which makes it very clear they are supremacists. It's that simple. There's no mincing words here. This is what they are, and they are using Rorschach's sort of like brand, if you will, as a image for themselves. They've co-opted it. So
because Rorschach is the symbol of, I think he's the symbol of skepticism and anti-government, and they're just acquiring that part of Rorschach.
Yeah, and
not the whole of Rorschach.
Yeah, but I feel like at this point it's probably more associated with this now, though. Like the idea that over time it's been just completely taken by them, kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So So we find out that she's actually good friends with Judd, the police chief. You know, she's in his office, and she was meant to go to the musical with him, and cancelled. And she's like, "Oh, I've already got a guy in my trunk." Like, you know, like I have someone already that's just a lightly. And she's like, I can tell. What was the word she used for sensing a supremacist? It was like a bleach. She can
Bleach.
smell it like bleach.
She smelled bleach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, we put them in the pod, and we briefly saw Tim Blake Nelson's character, Looking Glass. He's the one with the silver mask. Cool name, by the way, to go with that mask, because I never got that in the show. I never caught it at the very least. But they have this pod. It's almost Clockwork Orange style, where there's all these images appearing, but all around them, as he's asking them these questions. And that was where he asked the trans-dimensional question, which was really interesting. And that's where we saw the Nixon Mount Rushmore behind him at one point. And there was other little things in the background that were popping up that were...
There was a Rorschach mask, and...
Curious, yeah.
I won't say... Yeah, there were other things that... I kind of want to watch that part again, just so I can see.
Yeah, go
I'm not
through
really
it.
sure exactly.
Go through it frame by frame, well, not frame by frame, but, you know, something in that realm. But she gets out he gets out the pod, sorry, Looking Glass, and, you know, she's waiting outside as Angela, and she's like, hey... so what's your theory then? And he's like, yeah, he's definitely one of them. He knows something. Even though he answered no every time he was asked if he was associated with them, and he's like, no, his bias and all those questions was off the charts, and you know his pupils were dilating. No question, he knows something. And she just grabs him, and she's actually like apologizing, like, oh, sorry for how I grabbed you.
Yeah,
that
she's
was...
escorting him out, right?
Yeah. And after she apologizes for being too rough with him, she just grabs his head, rams him into a wall, and then goes into a room. We don't get to see it. We stay outside with Don Johnson and that as they're just waiting, and we see like blood pour from under the door.
Blood and something else.
And she comes...
I assumed it was piss, but it looked like a lot of piss. So maybe it was just water.
It's probably piss.
And then blood started coming out after.
Yeah, blood and piss. So it comes, so it kind of sets up that even like these good guys are very brutal. At least the vigilantes are. Like she wasn't holding back from that.
That's why they have masks.
So they get it's a cattle ranch, and we get this big scene where they're sneaking up in the cattle ranch. Were you upset that the bad guys, the Rorschach, started just
I am.
plummeting the minigun into all the cows?
Oh, poor babies.
I have to admit though, I did find it a little amusing that they were literally using cows for cover from gunfire. There was something just amusing about that image.
Those cows, that was gory.
Yeah. It's actually kind of a neat way to have a lot of gore without actually hurting like people. You know, like it's almost like an innocent gore, if you will.
Go on.
It's not real. It's not like they're shooting real cows here. Come on, it's a special effect.
Well, it's not like they shoot real people either in movies.
I know, but some people, oh, it's harsh or whatever, right? You know, it's not actual. Like, I don't think cows being butchered is visually speaking is much of a faux pas for conservative members of the audience, if you will. No, just okay. I was making some sort of point. Don't worry, it's not real cows. Don't worry, this isn't the 70s where if an animal was on screen and got hurt, it was probably real because that was just the cheap, lazy way to do it.
Yeah, I don't enjoy those either.
Yeah.
Nobody enjoys those.
No one does. Hell, even the director of Cannibal Holocaust went back and re-edited his own movie to take out all the animal cruelty because he's like, you know what, we shouldn't have done that, so I'm going to do a new director's cut that takes it all out. And you can watch it this way now.
Still had a lot of animal cruelty, but...
Yes, I agree. I've not seen it yet myself. If I ever do watch it, that'll be the cut I watch because I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. I don't.
Yeah. But...
I mean, in the Watchmen, yeah, you're right. I know they're not real cows, and it was fine.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a problem when people are getting...
This is okay, of course.
Yeah. But do you have a problem when people are getting ripped apart in movies? You have fun with that.
No, it's awesome.
Exactly. It's great. Exactly. Especially. So these guys are absolutely zealots, though. They're taking like suicide pills, so they can't get questioned and things like that. One of them dies. There's a cool little fight scene where she kind of runs into the little sort of like bungalow or whatever it is, and kind of takes the guy on, and some hand-to-hand combat. It's all right. And then actually, there's a little reveal here where you think Judd and like this other woman who's like on comms, who's wearing a mask. You think, oh, they're just in a truck somewhere nearby. Until like some bad guys take off in a plane, and Angela's like, "Hey, they're below you," and I'm like, "Below you?" And then you just see them like go to the cockpit of this thing, and it's an owl ship, and
Yeah.
that was really cool. Not that it lasts long.
I wonder.
But
I wonder what that means exactly, though. Why they have it?
did the Night Owl like donate his schematics for owl ships so the police force could make them, or
maybe it's the same one.
if they only have one and this is literally Night Owls, like that's like, unless we find out someone's connected to him that's like a main character or something, I would say that's a bit of
that's what I was thinking.
Coincidence. I
assumed it was the same ship.
I don't think so. I think it's meant to be like these are standard issue across the country. That's my guess, but I could be wrong. You may be right. But yeah, it was so mission well.
Still has the same flamethrower in the front.
It does, which they use on the plane, and that's good fun. And they're well natured after he crashes. And then we have a dinner scene where he sings Oklahoma songs because he played one of the characters in high school. And it's this is all fun.
Don Johnson, he can sing.
This is kind of the fun character stuff that told me that he was probably dead by the end of the episode, because they were making me. And there was that little thing where he was like taking cocaine like in the middle of dinner. I thought that was a weird touch, given that he's not around anymore. Because like, what are we going to explore with that now? Just like, maybe there'll be something with it. But he.
I mean, drugs were a big theme in Watchmen as well.
That's true.
So Spectre always smoked out of that pipe.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Didn't look like tobacco.
No. But he gets called out. He's kind of drunk. He's with his wife. We meet her. Her name's Jane, played by Frances Fisher, who I've seen in a bunch of things. She's one of those faces that pops up. And he gets called out because the officer who was shot woke up. And he's going out. He promises he won't drive, but he drives anyway. And I don't know if the officer really woke up, or if this was like a call. This call was fake. It might have been real, and someone just ambushed him, or the call itself was fake to lure him out. I'm not sure which, but there's spikes on the road to like stop his car, and then there's a bright light, and then we actually cut to Angela with her husband. They're having sex, and they gets interrupted because the phone won't stop ringing, and it's someone villainous who knows who she is. Like, I know who you are, and this is where we find out she's got like a shotgun like hidden in the headboard of the bed. The trapdoor was kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
But she goes out there. She's told not to wear a mask. She goes out to this tree, and he's been hanged. He's been out there. He's hanged. And the man in the wheelchair, who we didn't really mention when he popped up. He popped up when she went to her bakery, which is kind of her bat cave. She's got all of her gear, all of her vigilante gear in there.
Yeah.
And fun little thing. And he's like, "Nah, I did this." And he's got this sign, the note rather, and it makes it kind of clear this is who this is meant to be. This is who he is. Why did he do this?
The boy from the beginning.
Yeah. And why did he do this if he did do it? Is an interesting question. Obviously, the imagery of being hanged like this from a tree, again, is very racial. It's kind of flipping things, and curious. So obviously, there was a next time thing at the end, which gives us a little bit.
That he has a past. Don Johnson's character.
Yeah, maybe.
But
either that or it's symbolic because he's the head of the police in the area. I'm not sure, but I definitely think this 105-year life is going to come into play. We're going to see like different parts of this life that he's had and see kind of what led him to this kind of, which is why I think it will probably be like their Black Freighter story, where we'll keep coming back to it maybe once per episode to see a little bit of it.
Yeah. You said you kind of saw this coming, the whole him being hanged, but I did not. I was pretty thrown off by it.
Yeah, honestly,
because I was really excited that Don Johnson was going to be in the show,
and he was very heavily featured in the trailers as well. It was definitely when he, if not before, when he got that phone call and he was going to go meet the cop. I was like, okay, he's dead. I knew that's how the episode was ending.
I thought maybe captured. I was thinking something sinister, but I did not think death.
Yeah, that's fair.
I thought Don Johnson was going to be in the whole season, or at least more than one episode, but they Ned Starked us.
It's worth mentioning, though, before he leaves his house, it focuses on a photograph of him, presumably it's him as a child, with his parents or his father. And
his father, who also looks kind of sinister-like. So
Yeah, and the
maybe you're right.
music,
Maybe that's where the 105-year-old man will
yeah,
come into play.
and
Sins of the father,
the music
maybe.
is very sinister as well. So I think like his passage. So I think we might even see more Don Johnson just in flashback, maybe, uh,
I hope so.
later
I
on.
really like him, and I don't know. I want to see more of him. We didn't talk about Ozymandias.
Well, no, that was a separate thing. I was going to go back. I didn't know what part of the episode that slotted in at because it was like just its own little thing. Um,
Right. It
so
is very.
he's got a castle.
Mm-hmm.
He's in a castle. He's just
Sounds fitting.
and he's got a butler and a maid. There's a very weird scene here where he's naked and the maid kind of pops up from under the desk and I'm like, oh okay, dirty old man. But it turns out that he's just getting like a massage on his thigh because it's kind of tense. And she points out that it's very tense and he kind of says, oh, don't worry, you wire in, don't you worry about it. And it's very casual. And then the butler comes in and like says, hey, do you want to get dressed? It's your anniversary. And it's like, okay, so I don't know about you, but my inclination right now is that these two are robots.
Either robots or like clones or some kind of experiment.
Because
they are not human.
They're glitching.
Whatever they are, they're not.
They're glitching
They're not like us.
because they give him a cake and the butler says, would you like to cut the cake? And he turns to him and he's holding a horseshoe in his hand and he's like, that's a horseshoe. And he's like, oh, sir, would a knife be better? And I'm like, that's a robot. That is a robot glitching because he doesn't understand.
That is not that's somebody who doesn't understand how the world works.
Yes. So I'm excited about Ozymandias having robots and having some insane plan because the next time on
the Westworld's prequel.
Yeah, because the next time on after the credits looked very exciting and it looks like he does have some insane plan to fix the world again. And we get obviously Silk Spectre coming back, played by Jean Smart, who's with the FBI, and all sorts of things. The season looks very eventful. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to let it can, so hold the fort.
This show is not exactly what I thought it would be at all. It's already after episode 1 showing me that I don't know where it's going to go in the future, and I'm excited to see how it unfolds. Obviously, it's pretty deep subject matter that we're dealing with, but those always make for good television. So.
And Lindelof, to his credit, did some very interesting things in Leftovers when it came to religion. Like, again, it was a very difficult theme and subject that was explored.
Yeah, I know that's a show that a lot of people said I should watch, and I meant to do it. I don't know why I missed it.
Yeah, it's only, 28 episodes, the whole thing? I mean, so it's not...
It's only 3 seasons, right?
Yeah, it's not...
2 or 3 had quite a break, my understanding.
Yes. Yeah, there was like 2 years between 2 and 3, yeah. So it's not like a big time commitment, but like I think what that show did for like religion and belief and like depression and those kind of themes, it feels like this is going to do with politics and race and that kind of stuff. And I think because Regina King was in Leftovers, it's worth mentioning. She was a big character in season 2 of The Leftovers. So obviously that's someone who came back, which we sometimes see when it comes to creators on TV shows. Sometimes they like to bring back some of the same cast members.
I mean, she's great. She's got an Oscar and an Emmy.
Oh, she's very good. She's a very unconventional choice to lead a show, and I like that. Not just because of her race or even her gender, because obviously, again, still a sort of male-dominated world is the lead character kind of thing. Although TV fares a little bit better than movies does, but also because of her age, because she's not like 24, she's not like CW age. She's a middle-aged woman in her 40s with kids and a husband. It's a very different character to a lot of other. And again, it lines up with Watchmen because they were all not all of them, but even like. They were at least in their 30s.
Most of them are in their 40s, with the exception of Silk Spectre.
Yeah,
but she was the only one that was, and she was referred to as like the kid.
Yeah, they were kind of like past their prime kind of thing. A lot of the characters in Watchmen. So again, interested to see it play with those different things and see what it's doing there. I'm very excited to see what the next episode does in terms of. Okay, so now we've established this. It seems like there's going to be a bit of a mystery as to whether or not it was the 7th Cavalry who did this to Judd, or if it was this old man, or if it was like, and if it was the old man, is he working alone, or is he part of some sort of group or entity? No, these are interesting questions that need to be.
What that note says.
Yeah, yeah. So, no, I really liked the first episode. I am mulling down, for watching the whole show.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what happens next. Only 9 episodes, but
9 episodes.
that's all right.
Yeah, it takes us up to about Christmassy time, I think. Maybe just before. And then HBO have already kind of revealed what the next big drama is after that. There's that sort of maybe supernatural murder mystery.
Stephen King.
Stephen King written, yeah. So, yeah, that's Watchmen. That's Watchmen, episode 1. So, by all means, let us know what you think of the first episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fudge for channel updates. Ding the bell on YouTube as well if you want to make sure you get notifications. You can support us by rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars, helps more people find us. And as earlier on, Tara mentioned Patreon. You go to Patreon if you want to do it financially. And check out all the content we do. We obviously have a DC Comics podcast that I do with Connor and Matt called Comics from the Multiverse. If you want to hear that, we reviewed Doomsday Clock on that. One issue left of that that's meant to be out right at the end of the year. We're very much looking forward to that. It's been a great series to review as it's been going. So go and have a listen to that. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?